Men of Reddit, what's the most pathetic / ridiculous thing another man has done in attempt to assert his dominance over you? Had a dude get mad at me for talking to his girl all the time. I was her econ tutor. So when I was in the 8th grade there was this one kid who hated me for no reason. I was really big for my age. So there was no way this 5 feet 1 inch guy was going to fight me. So he did something so cringy I have no idea what he was going for. I was sitting at lunch with my friends, and this kid walks up to us and spits in my glasser of milk and says in a very commanding tone, "Drink." I just stood up and the kid bolted. Got a good laugh out of it with my friend though. Edit, to all asking what it tasted like. I did not drink the milk. Edit 2, the kid bolted because he was a huge juked, never wanting to get in trouble. I'm not flexing by saying that. The overly firm handshake is always annoying. I'm not a freak show of strength, but I have a good enough grip that I can get them to back off. Imaginary lads. Playing a game of pool at a bar for a beer. Dude missed an easy shot and broke the cue stick on his knee. He then gets in my face to try to intimidate me. I just simple tell him, look dude, you are at a locals bar, oh. He shut up and left after that. Dummy. Edit, yep, most of you are correct. Locals bar meant we all knew each other and had a very on us back. Only time I have had to use that line. Honestly was looking out for this dude more than anything. Did not want to see him get his grass kicked and any of us go to jail that night. A guy was mad at me while sitting at a light and was revving his engine. It sounded like he held it at the red line, and there was a big crack sound and smoke started coming out of the front of his car. The dummy blew his engine. He tried to drink water faster than me. No one drinks water faster than me. A former coworker. He would just stand in the way and refuse to move. Even if he wasn't in the way he would purposely get in the way. I work in a narrow kitchen, so you can imagine how annoying that could be. At one particular moment I was carrying a bulky 20 pounds box and he decided to do that. I pretended to not see him and barreled into him. He fell over and got incredibly mad at me. Started talking about how I have no muscle. It was pretty funny. It was a display of the most fragile masculinity I've ever seen. Was out having a drink. Started chatting to the guy next to me when I learn he, too, is a musician. He then tells me you're not a musician. I find it offensive when people tell me they're a musician when they haven't put in the time and dedication that I have. Okay dude, come down off your ego trip. Christ. Edit, grandma. On mobile. Threatened to beat me up if I so much as look at his girlfriend again. His girlfriend was my sister. I maintained eye contact whilst laughing as she dumped him on the spot. Edit, thanks for the gold. Generally guys purposely bumping into you when you walk past them, especially if they're with friends. Came up to me and he posed for a few minutes. There was this sergeant I had the misfortune of working with who was one of the worst people I've ever met. He was so toxic and alpha that people wouldn't ask questions because they didn't want to be put down in front of their peers. He would actively go out of his way to shame what were essentially kids for not knowing something. I had zero respect for that piece of work. This happened over D&D when my friend, who owns a store, let these guys we didn't know that well to join our campaign. I don't know why. I, out of the table, got singled out, but a girl walks in and this guy complained that I didn't order pizza for him. Said how about you go duck yourself when I asked him if he wanted some. Walked over behind me and playfully puts his arms around my neck. I told him I'd punch him in the face if he did it one more time because I don't know who the duck he is. Absolutely ruined my day. Edit, oh my lord. My first Reddit gold. Thank you stranger. Pee super forcefully directly into the water so that the lesser males know how powerful my stream is. I work in a grocery store and sometimes help unload the delivery trucks, and our delivery comes in on what we call cages. Like a 6-foot cage on wheels, and obviously one that's full of toilet paper will be really light, and one filled with 2-liter bottles of juice are the heavy ones. The lift that lowers them from the truck has that patent metal floor, and you have to pull the heavy cages hard to get them off. Now I'm 5 feet 8 inches and don't have a lot of weight on me, but I can pull these cages off just fine. But there's a guy who's like 6 feet 2 inches and is always trying to show how strong he is. So whenever I'm helping and he's there, he always insists he gets the heavy cages and that I get the little guy cages. Everyone agrees he needs to grow up. One time at a house party, a few of us were talking to some of the girls there, and one of the guys randomly started talking about how he does MMA. Then another guy joined in, and those two started wrestling in front of the girls. I don't think their shirts needed to come off either, but what the duck do I know? Literally last weekend some really drunk dude who I had never once met or interacted with tried to fight me to impress the girls he was with. It was completely ridiculous, and his way of trying to initiate it was just repeatedly body checking me on the dance floor, which I ignored because I thought he was just being drunk and dumb. Turns out one of his friends had to stop him from blindsiding me with a sucker punch to the face, assuming he was able to aim that well. Some people do not mix well with alcohol apparently. When asked about what his hobbies are, he responded with hobbies are for children and single women. I work. In junior high I remember this one bully that would get on his tiptoes and bow out his chest like a gorilla and get all in your face whenever he felt threatened. It was such a funny stereotype maneuver. When I was in the military during our PT tests there was a maximum for everything. So once you hit the magical maximum number there really is no reason for going on. I always had to PT test the same time as my supervisor who was more physically fit than me, so when it came time to test he would always go beyond the maximum number, unlike me who would hit the number and just stop because there was no point. After every test phase he would get up and yell at me for not giving it my all, but I would just look at him and ask him what the point was. He made me go to my commander and explain myself. I think he was hoping I would get in trouble, but luckily my commander understood there was no point is going beyond when you hit the maximum number. Really stupid. Was at a party and was given the task of handing out beers to people. This guy flipped a ship, screaming saying he only drink real beer. Dude, it was cold and free. That is the best beer there is. Flick my man tits. I had someone stand on their tippy toes to seem taller when we were talking. We once had a candidate come into the interview and legit say he wanted to sit behind the desk because he was going to be asking the questions to decide if he wanted to work with us. I think he'd gotten some bad advice about having confidence. I laughed, but our manager flipped her ship. The only time I have ever seen her call security. Once when I was walking on a street, a guy was walking behind me and started to walk faster so he could pass me. I didn't care, but then he just stared at me straight in the eyes and walks into a tree. Edit. Thanks to everyone for the likes, it was a real confidence boost, and thanks for my first 2 silvers. I was walking to my car after school and this guy getting in his car just yells at me, "You ugly F." Bro. I flipped him off without even looking at him, and he yelled "beach" and drove off. How petty do you have to be to tell someone minding their own business that they're ugly? I always feel like the guys who refuse to make room for you when walking by in the other direction are trying to assert their dominance and make themselves feel like hot shit. I never understand why people do that. This guy from work gave me a lift, which was decent, but he had a chip on his shoulder about it. He put on the child locks. I couldn't get out, so he came around to let me out of the back, and I got out and walked off. Didn't close the door. I'll let him do it like a chauffeur. I used to tend bar in Milwaukee, and there is nothing that triggers self-conscious sweetness more than seeing someone drinking something they don't like. I cannot tell you how many arguments began with some dude, always unsolicited/unprovoked. Mind you, feeling compelled to judge and educate other guys about what they're drinking or not drinking. You drink that dis. You juked. And it goes downhill from there. No one cares. Drink what you like and shut up. Talked about the MBA program at his alma mater was superior to where I was getting my MBA. For clarification, he doesn't have and isn't working on an MBA, but wanted to be sure I knew he was better because he went to a school with a perceived better program. Not letting go of a handshake. It has happened a few times and always make me wanna treat it as a hostile action. Last time it happened I just started caressing their hand with my finger and the guy jerked away. I winked at him after. Edit. Thanks for the silver and all the make it sexually awkward _ suggestions, strangers. Make fun of the way I take my coffee. I hate the toxic ship where, unless you drink it black, you're not a real man. Like bitch, I'll drink it however I damn well like. A friend tried to make himself look good in front of his crush by literally putting me in a random chokehold for a laugh. Turns out it was because I was talking to her. I had a girlfriend at the time. We were just talking. It wasn't a chokehold though. It was basically just a headlock. So I decided to correct him. I was fairly oblivious and didn't realize this was a failed alpha move. Creep the ship out of his crush. That he would do that out of nowhere, and she stopped talking to him. Apparently she quite liked him up until that point. So he kinda shot himself in the foot. My neighbor in front of I'm a guy, house had a boyfriend that would literally rip his shirt off and come outside every single time I was in my front yard. It could be 7 AM or midnight, but it wouldn't matter to him. I could be walking to my car, and here comes Mr. Globberjim flexing all around his yard. He would immediately go back inside when I went back inside. This went on for almost half a year until one day I saw him hop into his mega lifted truck and drive away, never to be seen again. He did have pretty sweet pecs though. Was on a 4-hour flight, in a 2-person row. The guy demanded to have full access to the middle armrest. Would push my arm off it if I ever got near it. Not me, but my dad. My dad has season tickets for the AHL hockey team in town. One day, he was late for a game and arrived to see a teen in his seat with his girlfriend. My dad kindly asked him to move, explaining that these were his seats. The teen responded with a quick "No, it's not." My dad then showed him his season tickets and pointed out on the kid's tickets that their actual seats were a few rows up. The kid got up and tried to square up to my dad. My father was just like, "Really dude?" and ignored them. The girlfriend began screaming at him for being an brasshole. Long story short, dad kindly asked kid to get out of his seat, and kid tried to intimidate my dad for this. One guy I know tried to get everyone to whip out their dicks and compare sizes, and honestly it came across as one of the most insecure and childish efforts to assert dominance ever. Because stick size has nothing to do with dominance. Also, this is the guy, when we were getting a house, insisted we've all gotta be equals, despite always trying to run things.